Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is a Texas Rangers edition of 903 Sports. I'm joined here by the boys, Hunter Shattuck and Connor Crow, aka Krowski, to talk a little Texas Rangers baseball. We are what, boys? About 2 weeks away from spring training, 3 weeks away from spring training, and the season will kick off at the very end of March. Big expectations coming into this year for the Texas Rangers. Had a nice offseason, spent a lot more money, and they brought in the best pitcher in the world named Jacob deGrom. So, Hunter, I'll start with you. Give me a grade on this Rangers offseason.
A minus.
A
A
minus.
minus. I don't know if you want me to elaborate, but I'll give it an A
Go ahead.
minus.
Give me why.
I mean, we got DeGrom, which we were joking about it all year. Like, oh, we were sending the Photoshop picture of DeGrom in the Rangers hat, and it happened. So I didn't think that would ever happen. And my dad's reaction sums it up. I sent him the tweet saying that Jacob DeGrom is a Texas Ranger, and his response was, "Holy crap!" Like, the Rangers don't get guys like that.
No.
But after that, I mean, we did fill out the rotation. We got a whole new pitching rotation, which is great, but we didn't add any bats, which is kind of a bummer. Even in the middle of the season, the owner came out, Chris Young came out and said they were going to go for a middle of the lineup bat, and that just didn't happen. So that's the only reason it's not a solid A or even an A plus is that we just didn't get a middle of the lineup bat.
Yeah, I don't know if we're done. I would assume that we are, but Jerkson Profar still out there. Former Rag himself would be a
We
nice
we
addition to our
we can
outfield.
get into this later, but I would almost rather not sign Profar. I
Really?
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into this later, but I've got a solution at outfield, which y'all know what it is. I mean, I'm
Well,
high on Zeke, so I'd rather see Zeke get those at bats than Profar. We know who Profar is. Zeke could still be a very, very good Major League Baseball player. We know that Profar is not. So
Ski, I'll go to you. What's your grade for the Texas Rangers offseason?
Yeah, I was a borderline like A minus. I think that's a fair point because the pitching, I would say like the reason it's between those two is because the pitching, in addition to DeGrom, was the Heaney, the Odorizzi, the Eovaldi things, and then on top of that, removing all those horrible like batting practice bullpen arms
mm,
was such a plus. But
Huge.
yeah, I know like we needed like a corner outfields, a bat that hasn't come yet. I mean, we'll see, but I think you can't field every option
yeah,
externally. Somebody's got to come through the farm and show up. It just doesn't. That's how the sport is. So I get A minus. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I'll just give it a straight A. I won't elaborate too much, but the biggest need for us was starting pitching,
yep,
and we got that. And if Nathan Eovaldi can turn back the clock a little bit for us, we could have one of the best rotations in baseball. And Martin Perez, he didn't have to be the Perez of last year, but if he can be a solid starting pitcher for us, that's going to be great. We're going to have
yep.
DeGrom, Gray, Martin Perez, Eovaldi, and then the five spot is going to be probably Andrew Heaney, maybe Dane Dunning. It'll probably kind of rotate. It's a pretty good five, man. And that's something to
Yeah,
be excited about. And that's one thing Ski said. We cut a lot of dead weight in that bullpen that
yep.
needed to go. Guys like Colby Allard, we had to move on from those guys. Thank God that we did. And expect big things this year from Jonathan Hernandez and Jose Leclerc getting back
Yep.
healthy. Jonathan Hernandez specifically, I really like that guy. He's got some good stuff. And hopefully Leclerc can get back to what he was before his Tommy John.
Man, Hernandez has closer stuff.
Yeah.
Like he has an electric fastball and a nice breaking ball. So I think he's a closer waiting to happen, I think.
All right. So we talked about getting to Grom, correct? Is there
Yeah.
any Are we nervous at all about his injury history in the past? Because we're paying him a lot of money. I know it's in the back of our minds.
Yes.
Yeah, me too. Okay,
Yeah,
so give me
cautious optimism. The name of the game there.
how many starts would we be satisfied with, Hunter?
To me, it's less about the quantity and more about when they happen. Like I'd rather get 80 innings of DeGrom when those are in the second half of the season. If he's healthy in September and maybe even October, I'd rather that happen than get 130 innings, but he gets hurt in August.
Right.
So
That timing.
can we make it to October without him? Probably not. But even if we make it to October without it, like if we get there and then he gets hurt and he's not available for October, then it doesn't matter. Like the rotation's not good enough to do anything in October without Jacob deGrom. So, I mean, obviously, I'd love to see 25 starts out of him, but is that unrealistic? Maybe a little bit. So to me, it's more about the timing of when he gets his starts, when he's healthy. That's more important.
Ski, what do you think?
Yeah, I think 25 is probably the number that I'd be happy with.
Thrilled.
I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of threw a wrench into the whole 5-man thing and started. It's not like we have a shortage of guys that you're kind of okay with starting. So they go to 6 for a while, or it's like a doubleheader, like long road trip kind of thing, and they just go with 6 and give each of those guys an extra day of rest. I wouldn't be surprised. That'll cut down the number of starts, but you're still getting the quality pretty close to rotation what you want. Yeah, I'd like to see 25 out of them. I don't think like the injuries, like the most recent like stress reaction thing. It's not something that lingers and is kind of handicapping him for the rest of his career. So I don't think it's going to be much of a concern. I think everybody's kind of blowing that out of proportion just because he left one of the most popular teams in the sport, and that's not going to be popular with a lot of the fans. So, that's circling around. It's an easy way to write off a deal that another team makes, but that's another conversation entirely. We were talking before about this list that MLB put out about the top 10 starting pitchers in baseball.
Did you see this, Cameron?
I did not.
It's
It was like
blasphemy.
10 minutes ago.
DeGrom not on the list?
Up. He's on the list at 9.
Oh, phooey. Who's one?
Corbin Burns.
Oh, are you kidding me? Corbin Burns is one. Oh, that's terrible.
Ski, do you have the list up? Go through the list.
Now.
It's criminal. Okay. Just real quick.
Burns, Justin Verlander, fair. Carlos Rodon, Max Scherzer, Sandy at 5, Shohei, Max Fried, Zach Wheeler, DeGrom, and Julio Urias.
Carlos Rodon is number 3. He's had 2 good years. Hey. Oh, wait, who got him? Was it the Yankees?
The Yankees, that's why.
Yeah, we'll find out a lot about Mr. Carlos Rodon this year in that.
I don't know what's more criminal, Sandy at 5 or DeGrom at 9. I mean, Sandy Alcantara just have one of the most dominant pitching years I can remember relative to the competition.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're 1 and 2 for me.
Very good.
Great pitcher.
Number 1, my tail end. Rodon, number 3. And Verlander and DeGrom, they go hand in hand, in my opinion. I don't know how one's 2 and one's 9. DeGrom missed a few games. Well,
one is a Met, one's a Ranger.
Exactly.
Goodness gracious. That
exactly.
Is,
just so happens 2, 3, 4 are. Yeah, I know. MLB Network.
Goodness me.
That's fired.
Anyway.
Yep.
Okay, so back to my point. What I was going to say, and we can move on, was he's going to miss starts. I mean, pitchers miss starts throughout the year. We just got to avoid serious injuries. Like Hunter, we were talking about Kevin Durant earlier. He's out for 3 months for some knee injury or whatever he's got going on for like the 4th year in a row. We've got to avoid that. If we miss DeGrom for 3 or 4 months, this team, I'm not saying it's playoff or bust or anything this year, but the P word playoffs is probably out the window if DeGrom's missing 4 months.
Yeah. So I got 2 quick points before we move on from pitching. Number 1, we were talking about the free agency additions and how we have a lot of arms now. Before we re-signed Perez, before he accepted the qualifying offer, our rotation was going to be John Gray, Glenn Otto, Dane Dunning, Cole Ragans, and Spencer Howard. And now we have a totally different rotation, and so we have a surplus of arms. So I don't quite know what we're going to do with Otto, Ragans, and Dane. Dane's the other guy. So I don't know what we're going to do with those guys. I'm not sure if we send 1 or 2 of them down the AAA or they go to the pen and be kind of middle relievers. I'm not sure what the plan is, but I guess spring training will kind of give us an idea which way they're leaning. But here's the most important thing I want to say. It's a question, all right? Let's say it's DeGrom's 3rd start of the year. He gets through 6 innings at 86 pitches, and he's perfect. Are we wanting him to stay in that game?
I say leave him in, but I mean, I'm probably not the best source for that, but I want to see him until that.
We were cussing the Dodgers for taking out Kershaw last year, but we weren't Dodgers fans. Now,
Kershaw wasn't our guy.
if DeGrom goes out in April in a meaningless game, we're up 7-0 and he's perfect through 6. I'm gonna be like, oh, you may want to pull him there, Skip. Like you may want to rest his arm. What do you think? I mean, I don't know.
I'm a big leave him in. That's
Leave him
more
in.
than
Leave him in. That's what I say.
100%.
I'd at least think about it. I would at least think about it. Anyway, all right, that's all I got on pitchers.
Yeah, because at that point you're not gonna throw. I mean, I think he's smart enough to know that he's not the healthiest guy. He's not gonna be, trying to hit 102 in the 8th inning.
I hope not.
And at that point, it's gonna be a little bit of adrenaline taking over.
Yeah.
So I'm a leave it in guy just because if you're gonna have all this history and crap made, around, we got the 62 from Judge, we got the Padres no hitter, and all that BS. We want our own kind of thing like that. If it's gonna be at the expense of a start or two, then I'm fine.
I like it.
I'll tell y'all this. I cannot wait to watch Jacob deGrom pitch for the Texas Rangers. Can't believe that's a sentence, but
Man.
I can't wait. One more thought on our offseason, something we didn't mention about our offseason in our offseason grades. We got a new skip.
Oh, yes.
2-time World Series champ, Bruce
3-time.
Bochy or Bochy?
Bochy.
The Boach Master. Yeah.
The Boach Master.
Yeah, that's probably
the
best move. Hard to say, but the move with the most impact, I think you could argue.
I was iffy on it just because he's so, he hadn't managed in a while and he's so much older, but he said it was going to take a special situation to bring him out of retirement, and he took this job. So that tells me he thinks we could have something cooking over here, and he wants to be a part of it. Hey, I'm all in. I'm all in. Guy's a 2-time World Series champ.
Three-time. Yeah. And with him, we got Mike Maddox back as pitching coach. Do not underestimate that.
Huge. And do we still have – and Hires is back this year again?
I think so.
Yeah, man, I like the staff a lot. I started thinking after the AFC Championship game, football's pretty much over. I'm starting to think, rag season's knocking on the door. It's around.
Just think how nice it's going to be. Those videos always come out of spring training of the sounds of baseball, and it's nothing but like your batting practice and the ball going into the glove. I mean, it's nothing better. Oh, I can't wait.
When does spring training start? About February 25th or so, 20th?
I think pitchers and catchers report the 15th, but I'm not sure if that's World Baseball Classic guys or if that's everybody, like all pitchers and catchers.
I'm such a sicko. I listened to Jared Sandler call the Cactus League games last year in spring training.
I can't wait.
Loved every bit of it. Can't wait. All right, so let's move off pitching. Let's talk a little bit of outfield. So that's where our hole is. We've got Adolis in the outfield for sure. And we have probably Leote going to be back in center. Left field, we rotated how many guys last year? 20 guys in left field? 13. I mean, and we're probably going to do the same thing this year unless we sign somebody, but that doesn't look likely. So who are our candidates for left field? Ski, I'll start with you.
I'm going to start by saying who's not, more importantly, and that is Nick Solak is not a candidate for the left field position. Yeah, Spanish, thank God. But yeah, I'm with Hunter on this one. I think Zeke is a good athlete. He's got pop. Yes. He chases too much, but that's not unfixable. He's got a good enough glove to manage there too. So that's probably our best option. I think he's probably got the most experience. I still think Josh Smith has enough pop. Talk about another contender. I guess he would be one. But those two, Bubba Thompson, I've always been high on. Unfortunately, Eli White won't be an option. Don't forget about that one. He's gone.
I can't believe we cut him. That was shocking.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that was more shocking after the move they pulled, signing that pitcher for the Pirates that got DFA'd immediately.
Yeah.
So I don't understand all the inner workings of that, but probably not the heaviest moves or influence of anything. But that's probably, I think it's Zeke's spot to lose at this point. I read that, they weren't really giving Evan Carter much of or Aaron Zavala or Dustin Harris much of an inside route to it, which is, we'll see. I get it. I mean, Evan Carter's 19, 20 years old, so it's fine. I think he's probably the best player in the organization. So we'll see how that goes, but it's Zeke's spot to lose.
Yeah, Evan Carter, I've been seeing him, throughout last year and then the beginning of this year's too early prospect rankings. He's our guy. I think those guys are probably 2024, 2025 guys, still a couple of years away or a year away. I think we're going to see guys like, Zeke's going to be I think he's probably going to be starting there to start opening day. We'll see a lot of Bubba Thompson as well. But like you said, Ski, thank God Nick Solak is not going to be in left field this year. Thank goodness, man. That guy was a liability. So that's one thing we could also discuss too. If say this team is 5 games above 500 at the trade deadline, we could have that could be a spot to fill. We could trade a couple prospects and get a solid left field bat to help us make a playoff run. So there's a lot of different things we can make. Our farm system is not the top in the league, but it's certainly a solid farm system. I'd say top 10 in the league, if y'all would agree.
Oh yeah.
So we have pieces, and that's a big gap. Yeah, I mean, I'm not as high on Zeke as y'all are, but I'm not down on him. I'm pretty out on Josh Smith because he's got a noodle bat. But Zeke's got some pop. I like Zeke's glove. I mean, he's young. We'll see this year. If Bubba could make more contact, I would like Bubba. He's just kind of hacks at it. He's got a lot of speed, man. He's got a lot of Delino DeShields in him. But
hey, I got a question. So we're only talking about left field here. Do y'all have Leote in center?
I don't think it's a lot for him to be there, but I think it's his position to lose, I would say.
I think you're probably right about what. Well, I say that. I mean, we haven't seen Bochy manage his team, so we don't know what he sees. But just judging by the at-bats last year, Leote's probably a lock in center. I would not have him in center. Personally, my ideal lineup in outfield is Zeke in left, Bubba in center, and Adolis in right. What doesn't make sense. I don't like Leote. No, that's pretty well done. I think. No, I don't. He doesn't pass the eye test. He looks uncoordinated. He's a terrible base runner. He's extremely fast, but he's a terrible base runner. He only stole 11 bases last year and was thrown out 5 times. That's terrible for somebody with his speed. So I've got him and Bubba. That's who I'm looking at for center field. And I've got their slash lines side by side, and they're almost identical, like within 5 points of one another, and which is basically the same player. But Bubba gets on base about the same clip last year, but that was a very down year compared to how he's been in his career. So I think he's going to bounce back, and he steals so many more bases, and the bases are getting marginally bigger this year, which I don't know if that's going to amount to anything, but it surely isn't going to hurt. I mean, in 55 games last year, Bubba stole 18 bases.
It was impressive.
And that's an absurd rate.
Yeah.
I think he could be a weapon, seeing as how Leote doesn't really offer us anything offensively anyway. Bubba can cover more ground in center, and he's a better base runner. They get on base about the same. I don't see what Leote adds. I really don't. Talk me out of that. Where am I wrong?
Ski, I'll let you go.
I don't know if I can talk you out of it. That's a good argument. I don't know. I mean, the eye test is tough. I think you're totally right on that point. But I think the problem is that the praise that Leote got when he came in as such a high prospect.
He's still riding on
MLB
that
in general. Yeah, exactly. But that's how long does that last? How long does that last for Profar? So the dark horse candidate we didn't mention was Mark Mathias.
Yes. So I what's up?
I thought he was gone.
He's still on the 40 man.
Yeah. He's staying.
So
Mathias, I love him.
He's the only one. Well, the only other person besides Mathias that we haven't mentioned who's on the 40 man is Bamboo Brad Miller, and he'll for sure get some at bats at left field. For sure.
I thought Brad was gone too. What is wrong with me?
No, he signed a 2-year deal.
No.
No.
Yeah.
He'll be rotating left too.
I mean, honestly,
probably so.
With just me being negative, the way our luck works, he'll probably be the opening day left fielder. Isn't that awful?
So while we're talking about that, so let me.
Hey, he's at opening. You remember what happened when he stepped up?
That's true.
That's true. Was like, wow, we were like, wow, this Bamboo Brad guy. And he was god awful for the rest of the year. Except when we played the Phillies. He was a Phillies killer last year.
Yes,
hey,
yeah.
Guess who that opening series is against?
The Phillies.
He gets one series.
Yo, let me ask you all this, and I got a few more questions for us before we jump off. So we're talked about our outfield. Who do we think will be on the opening day coming off the bench as far as utility guys? You think we'll go with 3 guys? And who would those 3 guys be? Say our outfield is Leote, Adolis, and Zeke.
Okay.
Who's coming off the bench if that's our outfield?
Bamboo,
For sure, Bamboo,
Bubba,
Bubba,
and Josh Smith.
and then maybe Matthias or Josh Smith.
It's a toss up between those last two.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, Fangraphs projected WAR in left field for us is Josh Smith with .7 WAR.
0.7 WAR.
0.7, yeah, it's the lowest on our
Stella
roster.
could have 0.7 WAR in left field.
I'm just not a
Yeah,
Josh.
they got Zeke projected dead even at 0. We'll see. I mean, I don't know. They've got a couple of those guys in spring training like Clint Frazier and McCarthy. Yeah. I don't think they're either gonna pan out, but
that would ruin the season for me. Is to waste it. You've got a couple of young guys who need developing, Bubba, Zeke, even Josh Smith. Don't give those at bats to some old guy who's going to have a 660 OPS. Like, that's a waste of time. Like, if you're going to have somebody, if you're going to strike out a bunch, at least be young and you're trying to develop into something. This is not a retirement home. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, watching Calhoun last year towards the end of the season.
Exactly. Cole Calhoun is a waste of time. And I'm afraid that if any of these older guys make the opening day roster, that's all they'll be. They'll be taking at bats from Zeke, from Bubba, from Josh Smith. I'm not into it.
That's a good point. All right, let's move on to our big guys here. So last year was kind of a tale of 2 halves with our 2 big signings last year, that being Marcus Semien and Corey Seager. Marcus was an abomination the first couple months of the season, to put it lightly. And then he kind of came on, and then he had a pretty solid end of the season. So Marcus, I don't know how you want to grade it, but he was fine last year.
He had a 5 WAR season.
He makes me want to pull my hair out sometimes, but he was all right. Corey was pretty good, and then bad, and then good, and then bad again, but he hit what, 30 plus homers last year?
Yeah,
33. He was an all-star. They
were
fine.
Record 33.
Those 2 were not the Rangers' problem last year, and that's good. Mm-hmm. It's not like so far we don't have, what's the guy's name? The worst contract in the history of baseball.
Anthony Rendon.
Bonilla?
No, Anthony Rendon. There's another guy I'm thinking of. It'll come to me later. Just an awful contract of a guy. He played for the Rangers, then the Orioles.
Oh, Chris Davis.
Oh,
Chris Davis. We don't have a Chris Davis on our hands right now. They were paid a ton of money to him. It was god awful. So look, the question is, what do we expect from those 2? Do we expect them to take another leap? Because, chemistry was an issue last year. We had a new team. We're trying to get with the guys. We had coaching turnover. It was a weird season last year. So do we expect bigger things from those 2 coming into this season? Ski, I'll ask you.
Yeah, I think so. I think the part I like about it is they are both clubhouse guys. They throw that word around all the time, but they like playing with each other. And they are both – they're not fighting for, stardom. We don't have a Padres squad. Mm-hmm. I think that's going to be a mess, with the Tatis and Machado BS a couple years ago. It's going to boil over into something wild. But I think they're both due. It's hard to say they're due for improvement, but because they had good seasons. But the shift is the name of the game for Corey. I mean, he's got the highest shift rate in all of baseball by far at like 94%. He had the most hits taken away from the shift last year at almost 30. I'm talking about 30 hits.
Mm-hmm.
That's almost a fifth of the year, a game worth of hits, So I think they're both going to be over 5-win seasons. And the shift's going to be big for them. And just how bad the first month or so was for Marcus last year just totally handicapped how good he was for the rest of the year. So I don't think that's going to happen again. And like the projection we threw around the other day, they've got Marcus as a top 10, 15, worth WAR in baseball. So I think they both command a lot of respect, and they're both going to have better seasons, which is going to be good. The question more for us is going to be, does Nathaniel Lowe play as well as he did last year? Does Adolis play as well as he did last year? And then, the catching situation is always going to be a toss-up for me. I'm not too favorable toward one of those guys over the other, but those things, and then the pitching, the health and consistency of pitching. So, I think again they're not going to be the problem. Those two for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Ski,
There's a
why we go ahead, Hunter.
well, there's a difference, and I'm not trying to pigeonhole you, Ski, but to sound like Cameron, these guys are getting paid a whole lot if the standard is just not being the problem. Like we need these two guys not necessarily to carry the team, but to pretty much put the team on their back and run.
They need to be, yeah.
I need Corey Seager to put up a 950 OPS season, like a true elite level offensive season. Marcus Semien needs to hit 30 plus home runs, needs to bat 260. Simeon's not running to be an average guy, but they need to do something to really kind of put the team on their back and run. And so I'm going to be a little bit harder on them than just not being the problem. Last year was a bad year not bad year, but down year for both of them compared to their career averages. So hopefully they can bounce back a little bit this year. And the shift being gone, like you said, Ski affects Seager a lot. And even Semien would ground. They would shift him on the left side. And he would ground into the shift a lot. So hopefully it's going to have some positive effects for him. And who knows? I'm hoping for better things, though.
Speaking of the shift, poor Rugi's out of the league, and the first year the shift's gone, he's not going to be in the league. That just crossed my mind. But yeah, I mean, I agree, Hunter. If those are our guys, those are going to be our horses. If this team's going to be any good, those guys are going to have to be a massive part of that. It can't just be not the problem. They've got to, last year's kind of a throwaway year. First year, it was a mess. Kind of starts
and they were
now.
fine. And they were fine. I mean, like you said, they weren't the problem. Ski, you said it perfect. I mean, they were good enough to not drag us down. But now it's time for them to actually start pulling us forward. I think that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree. So let's move to a couple other positions. Hunter, I'll ask you. So our best player last year probably was Nathaniel Lowe. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
at least offensively.
By the end of the season, Nate Moe was outstanding. Great year. Do we expect him to have another year like that? And what do you expect to see at catcher with the Heim Garver situation? And then these two.
No, I don't expect Nate Lowe to do what he did last year. But so I was looking at his numbers from his career. They're not as bad as I thought they were. I thought he had been like a high 600, low 700 OPS guy. But every year but one, so I mean, he's only been in the league 3 or 4 years, but every year but one, he's been above 750 OPS, which is serviceable. That's okay. He's got some pop too. So it's not like we need him to be a high on base guy. So I think anything around high sevens, around 800 OPS is a good season. I think that's doable. I think we see something like that, especially with the better bats around him. We have Josh Young in the lineup now, who we haven't talked about. I feel like we got to mention him a little bit.
That's coming.
That's a good bat added to the lineup. I'm telling you, Zeke's going to be good this year. He's going to make a difference. We're filling the lineup's getting longer. There's not going to be the 6, 7, 8, 9 guys that are just dead weight, and I think that's really going to trickle up and make the guys at the top of the lineup more consistent. Oh, and to answer your question on the catcher,
that's a big question I have as catcher. What are we going to do?
The difference.
Heim got tired last year. There was too much Heim at catcher.
The difference between Heim and Garver isn't really offensive. I mean, I guess Garver has more pop, but Heim showed that he's a pretty good offensive catcher last year. But Heim's defense is great. He's excellent at framing pitches. He does a really, really good job behind the plate. So I would like to see him call or behind the plate in most games. But so he started 102 last year at catcher. He played some DH, but 102 games at catcher starting, and he got gassed. So now that was his first full season with that kind of workload. So surely he's going to be in better shape this year. But I really don't want to see him starting more than 85 or 90 games to make sure he's healthy. And now that Garver's back and healthy, that should be doable. Garver's going to be able to take a load off. My question is, what on earth do we do with Sam Huff? Like, does he have a place in this organization anymore?
It doesn't look like it. I'll just like to ski on that question, but it doesn't look like it to me.
Yeah.
Which
I don't think so.
I really liked him.
Yeah, I think he's just got. I mean, the power tool is like near 80. For him, and you don't see that a lot. It's like you talk about the eye test, like seeing 500-foot home runs is nothing better. But I think Heim has played well enough both ways, and a switch hitting catcher is kind of like not to bring Adley's name into it, but Adley Rutschman's like kind of redefining that position with that.
Yeah.
And so to get something like that's going to be kind of important. I still like Mitch Garver. I think he's got an excellent bat. He's a former Silver Slugger. I think if he stays healthy, he doesn't have to start a whole bunch of games behind the plate because his defense isn't as good. But I think he hits well enough to kind of solidify himself into maybe a DH spot or like an off catcher thing. So, and as far as Nathaniel Lowe goes, I think the way he is as a player kind of warrants the fact that he will play as well or better next year, just because he's kind of had the trend up instead of more like an inconsistent jump up and down. Like he has problems and he makes adjustments and he fixes them and he gets better, and that's it. He's the perfect coach's player in that sense.
Yep.
And some analytics here, I won't get all the numbers and stuff, but the things that he hasn't had going for him is pull rate and launch angle. So the two things that can turn him into the typical like first base big slugger kind of guy, he hasn't really gotten to yet, and that's kind of the exciting part of it is if he's
and those two
really
things are both very teachable. Those are really teachable.
So. Yeah. And that he won't benefit so much from the shift as much, just because you couldn't shift him. If anything, you might have to shift him the opposite way. But yeah, I think with the way the lineup rounds out, however or wherever you put him, it's going to be difficult. You can't. It's going to be seldom that you're going to feel comfortable pitching against those four guys between Corey, Marcus, Ham, and like Adolis or Josh Young or whoever you want to throw in there. You got to pitch to somebody, and so at that point, the depth of the lineup is going to have a boil over effect on the rest, making them better. And I think he's going to be a beneficiary of that for sure. So I'm high on him coming back for another round of that, near batting title. I wish he could have gotten it last year, but
he was close.
Yeah.
He was really the only thing worth watching trying to chase that batting title the last month of the season. It's kind of like the Martin Perez thing. I don't expect him to be the same as he was last year, but I'd like to see, Nate Lowe be a big piece of this team going forward. So last piece of the team, and then we'll get into expectations for the year. Our golden boy, Josh Jung, is finally a part of the roster. He came on late last year at third base, showed some flashes, home run in his opening game. So, Ski, what do we expect from Jung this year? Is he our guy at third base going forward?
Yeah, I think he is for sure. That was the most incredible thing I've ever – well, besides that no-hitter against us, being at that game for his debut and seeing him put one over the wall.
That was awesome.
At bat was incredible. And yeah, he's got the pedigree, and the injury history was the thing holding him back. He just couldn't stay healthy. He couldn't. He broke his foot. It's kind of freak stuff like that. They kept him out, but I think having him there consistently he's got a good glove. He's going to be a fun guy to watch. He's got all the attention of MLB. He's been a top prospect for a while, so I think he's ready for that spotlight. So I don't know, the projections on him are okay around. I'm looking like WRC plus projections for the lineup. He's at 108, above average, which is good. But yeah, I think he's the guy. I think the infield is about as solid as you can find or ask for.
Yep.
The outfield is going to leave us wanting, but we'll see.
I'm excited to watch Jung again. I really am. Hunter, I'll ask you, and then we'll go to the expectations.
Yeah, I think in evaluating him, he was up for 40 games last year, 35 or 40 games, and he didn't put up very good numbers. It was batting around 200, just not good. But there's signs for hope because he's been an excellent hitter at every level, and obviously in high school, but college, and then in every minor league level. And usually, if you're always good, like you're always a very, very good hitter, always exactly. Like some people are just good hitters, and that dude knows how to hit the baseball. And so I think maybe not this year, it won't be huge numbers. He had a 990 OPS a couple years ago in minor league baseball for a whole season. That's like elite. Yeah. So, I don't expect anything like that, but I do expect a good season. It's going to just be such an improvement over what we've had at third base the last couple of years. And
crazy.
that doesn't
take much.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, even if it does take him a little bit to settle into big league ball, it's not like
It
it's going to
will.
be worse than Charlie Culberson or whoever else we had playing third base last year.
Yeah, I'm excited for him. Last year was such a small sample size, and it was a horrible team. We just fired the manager. You could tell that team had thrown in the towel with a couple
Mhm.
months together. It was just a mess. It just wasn't good, and our losses reflected that as it spiraled. So a full season, we'll get to see him. He's
Yep.
going to have his droughts. Going to be a young guy, but he's got some pop, and he's exciting. He's our big prospect. So it's a pretty big year for Josh. I'm excited for him. I expect big things. I believe in him. I'm a
And
fan.
he's more than just a power hitter too. I mean, he's
Right.
always hit for average everywhere he's
Yeah.
been. So that's what excites me is my whole life the Rangers have had big hitters, but they've usually been big strikeout guys. And so
Yeah.
I'm excited to have a big time prospect coming up that actually puts the ball in play.
He's a good, just a good
Just
pure
a
hit.
good, yeah, just a good hitter. I mean, come on, is that too much to ask for?
Man, yeah, I'm looking at his
This organization.
2021 with Round Rock. He's
Yeah.
hitting almost 350 with like an 1100
Yeah,
OPS
I
and
mean, it's
WRC plus of
disgusting.
What a
166.
mess.
Yeah,
That's
that's
disgusting.
and yeah, I mean, a little cameo of 25 plus games around, with us isn't going to be
Yeah.
the end all be
Well,
all. So
yeah, I mean,
I'm
if you look
excited
at
for him.
Mike Trout was called up for like 35 games his first season and
Mhm.
played awful, and he turned out all right. Now,
Yeah.
Josh Young isn't going to be Mike Trout, but what I'm saying is those first few games don't mean anything at all. So I think if especially with the top of the lineup being pretty good, I think he can slot in around the 6 hole or so and have no pressure down in the bottom half of the lineup and just kind of find his groove, find some footing. And I wouldn't be shocked if by the end of the season he's not batting 4 hole for us. I would not be shocked.
That'd be awesome. That would be. Oof. If we've been trying to fill that spot since Beltray
Yep.
left.
Yep.
We never brought anybody in because we were going all in on this young guy being the man.
We
And it's
got
his
rid of
time now.
Falefa.
Yeah, we did. It's his time.
Yep.
All right. So the
Turned
big
out to be a
question.
good move.
Yeah. Yeah.
It hurt at
No
the time.
kidding.
Turned out to be a good move.
Ridiculous. So the big question now is expectations
Yep.
for this upcoming season. Everyone knows I'm the negative guy, so I'll start. Y'all were ripping me for me clowning last year's team with my expectations of last year, which were too high, but what's new? I think this year, I'd love to make the playoffs. That's not going to be an expectation, but I would love to. And I think it's possible if all the pieces fall, if everything falls in place. I think a winning record is my expectation. I take that back. Just be in the wild card mix, realistic wild card mix at the end of August and in September.
Yep.
That was my expectation for the Jets this year. Me and my buddy Kev said when they show the graphic on TV, just be in the hunt graphic at the bottom. If they had that for baseball, just be in the hunt. Give me something to enjoy in my dog
Yep.
days of summer when we're watching Rangers baseball, not watching the 40 and 68 racks. Let's be around 500. Let's win some games, have some good comebacks, not blown bullpen leads like we did every other night when we had a lead and we were losing 95 games. Just be enjoyable. Be in the mix, and then we'll go for it next year. That's what I want to see this year. Hunter, what do you think?
Couldn't agree more. I have in my notes play meaningful games in September. That is success. I think if we get to September 1st and no game is meaningful, that's a failure. Like a total failure. But with this, especially with this pitching rotation, if there's any semblance of health, we better be playing meaningful games in September. And I think it's extremely likely. Yeah, I think it's extremely likely we end up making the playoffs. I don't think that's a pipe dream. And now we're not going to win the World Series, but we could make the playoffs. And if the pitching is healthy when we make the playoffs, maybe we could make a run. Maybe we could be the Phillies. But I think meaningful baseball in September is the bare minimum. That is the definition of acceptable. And then anything past that is just gravy.
I agree. Ski, round it up for us on this
Yeah,
rag.
I'm gonna pin myself down with a win number,
Win-loss
a
number.
projection.
Does anybody know the
I
Vegas number?
think that's what I'm looking for.
I looked earlier today. I couldn't find it. But anyway, go ahead, Steve.
I forget what it was I took it last year, and
It was
like
74
74 and a half. Yeah. I think it's a little more than that now, but I'm going to say 85 wins, 85
Whoa,
and 77. That's
I love that.
17 wins more than last year. But I think the reason I could feel that bold is because the whole pitching situation, adding pitchers is so much. I feel like it has so much more impact than adding hitters because there were so many games last year where we hit well, we got enough runs to win games, but the pitching just couldn't hold a team off. There was just no way. I mean, the damn first game of the season against the Blue Jays was turned out to be the microcosm of the whole year. Like
uh-huh.
the offense was good enough to get it done, but the pitching and the bullpen was just so bad. You just don't give yourself a chance. So I think having that fighting chance to start with a better rotation is going to add up for wins a lot quicker than you would think. So that's my cautiously optimistic prediction at 85 wins.
Our win total
Don't know if that's
is
going to be enough.
our win total is
So,
82 and a half, by the way.
Over,
yeah,
over.
that's a good line. Yeah, good line. I don't know if that's enough to find that last wild card spot or not. I think it's going to be close between like Toronto. I don't know that the East is pretty tough still, but
AL's gonna
Central
be
just
good.
bad. Yeah, the American League's really good. Yeah, so we'll see.
Ski, you talked about that Blue Jays Rangers game, and when we were up 5-0 last year on the Blue Jays, we all thought we were winning the World Series. Then we didn't win that game. And like you said, that was a microcosm of last year's season. So hopefully we don't do that again because that's 2 years in a row.
Yep.
We've jumped out like a 6-0 lead on opening day and
Yep.
lost the game.
Oh
right,
yeah,
hey,
it is. Yeah.
Any closing thoughts here?
Yeah, I got a couple things. So I think the best thing we did about our pitching is the guys that we brought in, they're on shorter term deals outside of DeGrom, and they're somewhat veteran pitchers because we do have a lot of arms in the bullpen in the minor league system that are a year or two at most from being ready. We've got Owen White, Jack Leiter, Kumar, and maybe Cole Winn if he's still considered a big time prospect. So you got to think at least one or two of those guys are going to pan out and become big league starters. And so by the time the Evaldi, Heaney, Odorizzi, who probably won't be in the rotation, Perez, once those guys' contract ends and they move on, then we've got bullpen or I did it again, minor league arms coming up and to take their spot. And so I think we just played it perfectly. I mean, it couldn't be better. So I love that. And then the last thing that I want to say, it's another question. What prospects do we have a chance of seeing this year? I mean, we kind of touched on the fact that Evan Carter's not really in the mix. Zavala's out for a couple of months with an injury. I mean, there's really no room in the infield anymore for guys because we do have a lot of middle infield prospects. So are we going to see any prospects this year?
Ski, I'll let you take this question. Foscue could be a maybe in my mind, but Ski, I'll let you go.
Yeah, I was gonna say Justin Foscue. Maybe it's like a DH thing. I think the most you're going to see out of prospects is going to be buzz around them getting moved. You know, if this team shows up like is 10 games above come July, you know, it's going to be hard not to pick up the phone and take calls on a couple of those guys that you feel are really.
The only thing is maybe if we're 10 games above because Zeke is batting 290 with 15 bombs, if he's doing that in left field, then what are you going to do? Like, why are you going to trade somebody to get an outfielder?
Yeah, the best case scenario that either that's going to be a hole and the rest of the team is good and it's like you have no choice but to add at the deadline, or one of them works out and does well. I don't see why Justin Harris' name got put in with the guys that really didn't have a chance to take that spot because the guy's 23 years old and he's got everybody as much promise I think as Zeke does. So one of those guys may show up in spring training and really, wow some eyes. That doesn't happen often, but I think the prospect front is going to be more talk of who's going to be around for longer.
Yeah.
So
somebody moving from even within the organization, moving from high A to double A or double A to triple A, just watching those guys develop because Evan Carter's the guy. Like he's the crown jewel of offensive prospects, and he's only 20 years old. So even best case scenario, we're looking at a next year debut for him not this year. So we still have some time. But I think you're right. I don't think we'll see many this year.
And that's something to be happy about. Like we talked about at the beginning of the pod, is we have a good farm system. We have some really good young talent.
What the heck are we going to do with Luis Angel Acuna? I mean, are we going to try and move him to the outfield, or are we going to trade him?
He's pretty young.
He's like
I don't know.
Guy.
Yeah, he may convert eventually, but it's kind of locked up middle infield for a while. So we may not ever see him, at the Globe, but he rakes and he's got pop. So he's going to hit a lot of bombs for somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're kind of running out of room, but he's still young, years away, kind of a couple years away. Kind of we'll see what ends up with him. So any closing thoughts on this rag pod? We'll do one more when the season gets a little closer.
Yeah,
let's try to do one once we kind of get close to our 40-man roster, or once we cut down to our opening day, kind of right around there, see some guys that are on the cut line and all that. So, all right, everybody, thanks for listening. Baseball season is around the corner. We will see y'all soon.